Top 10 Richest Men in History. What comes to your mind when you think of some of the world's richest men? Of course, we have heard about the obscenely rich people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. However, how many of us know that they are not very rich comparing to some of the wealthiest leaders in the entire history? As a matter of fact, the contemporary versions of the world's wealthiest pale in comparison to some of the past, and by an extremely wide margin. Do you know that even the first richest person of 2020 does not own the wealth earned by the 20th richest person in the entire history? So how does it work? You see, ancient people have gained money and gold by fighting wars, savvy investing, capturing the throne through constructions and irrigations, and by building incredibly powerful businesses. In the modern world, the wealthiest have earned their place through inheritance, hard work, and initiatives such as business ventures or investments. So who are the richest people to have ever lived? And how much was their net worth? Let us see. Number 10. How many of you have heard about Mir Asamin Al Khan? He was the ruler of the Hyderabad state in India and had a total net worth of $230 billion. Shocking, right? Even Jeff Bezos, the wealthiest man in 2020, has only acquired the net worth of $189.5 billion. Mir Asamin Al Khan was one of the wealthiest person in the whole world and managed the railroads, electricity, and education of his area after the death of his father in 1911. He was called Nizam of Hyderabad and had 149 children. Number 9. Nikolai Alexandrovich Romanov, whose wealth scored up to $300 billion. Also known as Tsar Nicholas II, the Emperor of Russia gained his incredible richness during his monarch. He was extremely famous for being the last ruler of Russia before the country fell during the Russian Revolution. Before his execution in 1918, the Russian Orthodox Church recognized Nicholas II as a saint, and he was deemed as the wealthiest saint in human history, even now. Number 8. Andrew Carnegie was an exceptionally powerful and rich industrialist who became famous for establishing the first steel industry, namely the U.S. Steel Corps, which skyrocketed in the United States and earned him a solid $310 billion net worth. However, Andrew Carnegie came from an extremely poor family from Scotland. After his move to the United States in the 1840s, and after his company's reputation, he became one of the world's prominent philanthropists. As a matter of fact, he donated most of his fortune for charity before his death. Number 7. John D. Rockefeller, an American industrialist who established the Standard Oil Company in 1970. The company became exceedingly famous and provided him with a peak net worth of $367 billion. He was widely regarded as the richest American ever, since he was the sole owner of holding around 90% of the U.S. oil business. He was also considered one of the prominent philanthropists of his time. Number 6. Mansa Musa I of Mali, from 1312 to 1327. Mansa Musa I was the emperor of Timbuktu and Mali, and acquired the peak net worth of $415 billion. He ruled for 25 years and controlled a massive empire which covered much of the modern-day Mali and Ghana. He was well known for having half of the world's supply of gold at his disposal, which was traded with merchants from as far away as Venice, Genoa, and Egypt. Number 5. King Solomon, who was the emperor of Israel from 970 BC to 931 BC. According to the Bible, he acquired a peak net worth of $2.2 trillion and is believed to have gained 25 tons of gold for the consecutive 39 years of his ruling. He has also amassed a massive wealth from trade and taxation. He was considered a biblical ruler, and he's believed to have had a $2 trillion worth of today's wealth as his personal fortune. Number 4. Augustus Caesar, the first Roman emperor, who ruled the vast empire from 27 BC until his death in AD 14, boasted a personal fortune equivalent to 20% of the entire empire's economy, worth $4.63 trillion nowadays. At one point, Augustus even owned the country Egypt. However, he was not fortunate enough to hold his wealth until his death. Due to the succession of military failures and poor economic performance, Augustus Caesar lost all his wealth and died a poor man. Number 3. Akbar I, whose peak net worth was worth $21 trillion. Renowned for his lavish lifestyles and patronage of the arts, this emperor conquered hundreds of thousands of square miles of territory and ruled over much of the Indian subcontinent. Known as the Mughal Empire from 1556 until 1605, he controlled around 25% of the world's GDP at that time, which would translate to a staggering $21 trillion today. He was called Akbar the Great, who created a system of central government, integrating them into administration. Akbar was known for rewarding talent, loyalty, and intellect, regardless of ethnic background or religious practice. Number 2. Emperor Shenzong of Song. Shenzhong ruled China from 1067 to 1085 during the peaceful prosperity and primary abundance eras when he controlled around 30% of global GDP, the equivalent of a massive $30+ trillion today. Adept at collecting taxes, the emperor's administration wasn't all about taking, however. Its famous new policies, which helped improve the lives of the poor, are seen as a forerunner of the modern welfare state. A main source of the Chinese wealth during his time came from technological innovations and tax collections that were ahead of its time. Number 1. Genghis Khan. The formidable Mongol leader conquered a staggering 12 million square miles of land between 1206 and his death in 1227. His peak net worth was hundreds of trillions of dollars. But while his hordes pillaged their way through huge swaths of Eurasia, which is a combined continental landmass of Europe and Asia, territory that is now worth trillions of dollars, Khan didn't actually hoard his spoils, choosing to redistribute the stolen loot and territory among his subjects instead. One of the bases of his success is sharing the spoils with his soldiers and other commanders, says Mir Asamin, a distinguished professor of history at CUNY's Queen's College. Genghis still received a share of the spoils, but that hardly made him rich. He built no palace for himself or family, no temple, no tomb, and not even a house, says Weatherford. He was born in a wool yurt and he died in a wool gur. At death, he was wrapped in felt like any common person and then buried. One important thing to note is that there are likely figures missing, as numbers do tend to get lost or disappear as times go on. There are likely many historical figures like Alexander the Great, King Solomon, numerous Roman emperors, Egyptian pharaohs, and popes who have controlled huge fortunes. Yet there is no real way to put a dollar figure on these fortunes. Powerful families exist as well, including the Medici and Rothschild. However, their wealth is spread among several individuals, not a central figure. Now that we've noted the top 10 richest people in history, let's note some of the richest people as of 2020. The list begins with Jeff Bezos, Amazon founder and CEO with a net worth of $189.5 billion, who ranks as the richest one of 2020. Bezos is closely followed by Bill Gates, the co-founder of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, with a net worth of $114.1 billion. Next is Bernard Arnault, CEO of LVMH, who controls 70 brands including Louis Vuitton and Sephora, acquired $111.4 billion net worth as of today. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg's revenue has reported a spike of $4 billion, keeping him in fourth place with $95.5 billion net worth. The fifth richest man of 2020 is Warren Buffett, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, with a net worth of $80.6 billion. Popularly known as the Oracle of Omaha, he also owns several popular companies like Geico Insurance, Duracell, and Dairy Queen Restaurant. Now that we've established a comparison, which wealthiest person of the modern times do you think will move on to reach the top 5 wealthiest men of all time? Leave your suggestions in the comments below.